Assalamu alaikum. Britain is celebrating a centenary of the Balfour Declaration. As Muslims, should we participate in these celebrations, or should we learn about the history and its effects upon the Muslim world? After World War I, Britain, being the primary victor, had the audacity to declare the land of Palestine to a Zionist entity to pave the way for the creation of Israel. How does that affect the Muslims of that land? What has been the consequences? As Muslims, do we look at this favorably, as do the British, or do we have our own understanding of this issue? There seems to be a lot of confusion, a lot of ill-informed people are also suggesting that as Muslims we should look at these events as something that is positive or something that could and should also be celebrated. But tonight we want to investigate this a little bit deeper. First of all, does Britain have the moral right to determine whether a land belonging to a people to be given away? Is it Britain's right to do so? Can Britain justify this? Or can we clearly see, as many do, that this is a very, very wrong thing, a wrong move, a wrong action, which has resulted in the devastation of millions of lives? Hundreds and thousands of people have been made refugees, and the violence continues. Incarceration, killings of innocent civilians, women and children. This is what we see today, yet Britain feels that it is something that should be celebrated. World War I paved the way for the dismantling of the Ottoman Caliphate, which generally symbolized the unity of the Muslim world. As long as we had the Caliphate, we saw that the Western powers found it very difficult to meddle in the affairs of the Muslim world, But with World War I, when the Europeans realized that they were winning, they came out with the Sykes-Picot, a secret agreement between the British and the French, how they're going to carve up the Muslim land. And as we see today, it is exactly carved out as they designed that part of the world. And they propped up these dictatorships, these nation states, and created a type of disunity for the Muslim world and the Muslim Ummah. And then, just to nail the coffin, what they did, they created this state of Israel in the heart of the Muslim world. And now we are being told that we need to celebrate this, and we need to look at this whole project, this Western European colonial project, favorably. As somebody who is sincere, not even a Muslim, somebody who is sincere and looks at these historical events, will have to come to the conclusion that the injustice, the wrong of all of this. And we see many of these people like George Galloway or Jeremy Corbyn who do see the wrongs of these things. But especially as Muslims, we need to know that these are issues that have really impacted and affected the lives of millions of people in that region. So my advice to Muslims is that we learn our history and we understand the people behind this conspiracy. And we need to understand that they have never cared or had concern for the well-being of our people and our lives. They have no regard. We see how they are dealing, how they are bombing and killing Muslims today, how they are arming this terrorist Zionist entity who are killing innocent men, women and children. They're incarcerating children in prisons, and then they talk about human rights. They are the champions of human rights. They are the people of democracy and people who represent people. But we see none of this in this Balfour Declaration. So why is Britain celebrating this? Why is Theresa May hosting Israel in London and celebrating this? What it shows, dear people, what it shows is that Britain has not changed. Britain was a colonialist entity, and even to this day it has a colonial mission. It has other interests in our lands, in the Muslim world, and it is making sure that the Muslims do not unite, Muslims do not establish a representative government that will look after its affairs. And from there I want to move on to the solution. So what is this solution? This two-state solution America is working on, Britain is working on. What is this two-state solution? This two-state solution is a false idea that is projected widely to confuse, to fool the masses. This is what this two-state solution is. There is no such thing. Even they don't believe in this two-state solution. While they talk to you and me about two-state solutions, they are working for a one-state solution, which is Israel. They are arming this terrorist entity. They are banning Muslims from protesting. They are even banning Muslims from protesting here, even in the United Kingdom. Anybody who criticizes Israel is blacklisted. Is that working for a two-state solution? It's clearly not. As Muslims, we need to understand our solution is one that comes from the Quran and the Sunnah. And this solution is to liberate this holy land, to liberate Masjid al-Aqsa, one that is dear to the Muslims all over the world, one that means everything for the Muslims, because it is mentioned in the Quran. This land is holy and is blessed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran. And just like Salahuddin liberated Jerusalem in the past, we need to rise up to this challenge. And this is where I invite Muslims all over the world to think how to unite the Muslim Ummah and how to liberate Palestine and bring it under the authority of Islam. Because only under Islam we've seen peace, tranquility of all citizens, Muslims and non-Muslims. And not to fall for the solutions that are proposed or the ideas that are proposed by the colonialists who created the problem in the first place. Jazakumullah khair.